Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, so we'll start. Okay, XAT 2009 paper. It has total of 35 questions. Time will remain the same, 1 hour. So you can start immediately. I have given you rights to move to the next slide. Please start. Okay, time is up. So let me just upload the poll. Please start. Please start marking your answers. Okay, let's start now. The first passage, he's telling you that a country's greatest asset is its productive labor, and he also tells you that foreign trade is valuable. Why? Because it allows the use of more and more varied labor. He tells you that commerce is not something that is mutually advantageous to just the nations involved. है ना? So he actually is telling you that the increase of riches and commerce in any one nation, instead of hurting, it commonly promotes the riches and commerce of all its neighbors. So it's not that one country gains and one country loses because of foreign trade. Everybody gains, and then he tells you why. Why every country gains? Because the emulation in rival nations serves to keep industry alive in all of them. So emulation means copy. One nation tries to copy the other nation, and this is what keeps industry alive. And this is the reason why it commonly promotes the riches and commerce of all the countries that are involved. So based on this passage, question number one, the importance of foreign trade in eyes of Hume was due to what? It should be number five. The importance is because it allowed application or use of varied labor force in a nation. People who mark number four, it allowed varied application, wrong. It allowed application of varied labor. If you just look at this particular portion, some people also mark number one, there's no talk of surplus labor, and that is why this is not right. Number one answer should be 5. Number two, as per Hume, free trade between nations was made advantageous by the outcome of. That means, what is the reason? The question is asking you for the reason why free trade between nations becomes advantageous. Many of you have marked number one, but the answer is number two. This is the reason, and number one is the result. So the question is asking you, it is made advantageous by the result of what? So what is the reason behind it? The reason is emulation of industrial activity by different nations. Answer should be number two, but I see that most of you have marked number one as the answer. Is it clear? Question 1 and 2. Okay. If there is any objection, please stop me, okay? Otherwise, I'll assume that everything is clear. Question number 3 to 5, you have to select the best option from the given choices. For question number 3, the answer should be number 1, because here you have two words. When kite flying, you can always tell when you lose a kite. Over here, this word is correct. You need the loose without double O. How you can tell that you have lost a kite? Because the string feels loose. In the second place, you require loose with double O. Okay, so this is not followed in number 2. This is gone. This is also not followed in number 3. This is gone. In number 4, the second one does not have double O. This is gone. And again, the same thing happens with number 5. So only one option is correct, that is number 3. Sorry, number 1. Option number 1 for question number 3. Question number 4. Answer is again 1. Why? If that aspirants had not taken so long checking each question before attempting the next question. So before you move to the next question, you check the question that is before it. So you check each question and not all questions. Okay, so that is why number 5 is not right. If you have marked number 5, it is not right because you don't check all questions before attempting the next question. You should simply say you check all questions before attempting the paper as a whole. So when you have next question means you check each question before it. So that is why number 5 cannot be right. I think the only problem you probably have faced is making a choice between 1 and 5. Other 3 are, you can straight away eliminate them. Number 5. Question number 5. Now over here what is happening is that they have the news channel has to tell you that they have been married for a certain period of time. Okay, so in that case you'll have to use will have been married. Number 2. Answer should be number 2. Why it should be number 2? Because 10 years have already gone. 10 years are past. And right now you are making this announcement. You are making this announcement and this can continue. This marriage will continue in the future. And that is why you'll have to use, they will have been married for 10 years. What I'm trying to say is that you will have to use future perfect continuous tense. Future perfect continuous tense. And that is why for question number 5, answer should be option number 2. Option number 5. Okay, number 5 for question number 5. The news channel agreed to report that next Sunday the couple has been married since 10 years. Next Sunday, future May, the couple has been married. Nikunj, that will not work. Okay, because the channel will report it in the future. Channel to abhi next Sunday aaya nahi na. So this report will be in the future. So you cannot have has been married. They will have been married. Okay, coming to question number 6 and 7. He's talking about 2 kinds of yoga. I think this we have taken up in class as well. Yoga system is divided into 2 parts, Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga. And he tells you that Hatha Yoga is something that is very, very difficult. The processes that are prescribed, they are so difficult that only a few resolute souls go through all the stages of its practice. Many people have failed and some people have also died in their attempts, and therefore many people denounce Hatha Yoga. Then he's talking about the Sankaracharya, and according to Sankaracharya, Hatha Yoga is for those people whose worldly desires are not pacified or uprooted. So this passage does not really talk much about Raja Yoga. This passage is about Hatha Yoga, and he's telling you the problems associated with Hatha Yoga. Based on this, question number 6, which one of the following is true? Most substantially strengthens the idea that is given in this passage. So he wants to prove to you in the passage that that Hatha Yoga is very difficult. Not many people have succeeded. So how can you strengthen it? I think by number 5. When you say that the percentage of students who have successfully learned Raja Yoga is more than the percentage of students who have successfully learned Hatha Yoga. So you will be actually proving the point that Hatha Yoga is very difficult. Should be number 5 for question number 6. Number 7. Which of the following option best reflects Shankaracharya's comments on Hatha Yoga? He says that Hatha Yoga is for those whose worldly desires are not pacified or uprooted, which means answer has to be number 1. Yes. Hatha Yoga is for those whose worldly desires are not placated. Yeah. ठीक है, अभी तक anybody has doubt till now? Sarvagya, you want to mark number 5? No, number 5 is against what he's trying to say. Hatha Yoga is ill-suited for people with strong worldly desires. Nahi na, ulta na? It is quite the opposite. Sarvagya? This does not reflect Shankaracharya's comment. This contradicts. Option number 5 contradicts Shankaracharya's comments. It is ill-suited means it is not suited. सर्वज्ञ सेम कैसे लग रहा है आपको? Ill-suited का मतलब not suited for people. Hatha Yoga is not for those people who have strong worldly desires. 5 का मतलब ये होता है. Whereas in the passage he has told you that Hatha Yoga is for those people whose worldly desires have not been pacified or uprooted. So they are contradictory. Number 5 cannot be the answer. Aman, number 6. Number 6, you want to go to option number 3. The number of yoga schools teaching Raja Yoga is more than the number of yoga schools teaching Hatha Yoga. तो इससे कैसे प्रूव होगा that Hatha Yoga is pretty difficult? Hatha Yoga सिखाने वाले schools कम हैं in comparison to Raja Yoga, but that does not prove that Hatha Yoga is very very difficult in comparison to Raja Yoga. Probably Raja Yoga में ज़्यादा पैसे हैं, फीस ज़्यादा होती है. Probably that is why there are more schools teaching Raja Yoga. So no, number 3 is not a very valid point. The idea is that Hatha Yoga is very difficult. So number of schools teaching Raja Yoga and number of schools teaching Hatha Yoga, that does not prove to you that Hatha Yoga is difficult. Okay, so 6 and 7 done, and we now move to the passage from which you have questions 8 to 10. So he starts telling you about the Greens' success. The Greens basically means the environmentalists. The environmentalists, they've had success, okay? But problem is that what has happened is that they have become successful. The problem is that now they have become part of the government. They have become the government, okay? Now herein lies the problem. How can they reconcile their radical alternative politics with participation in mainstream or grey parliamentary and government securities? So earlier, in earlier days, the environmentalists they were not part of the government, but now that they are at many places, they are part of the government structure. They are in the mainstream now. They are participating in the mainstream, and they hold positions. Now, problem is that what to do now? Okay, what to do? Because अब तो जिस चीज के लिए लड़ रहे थे उसकी वजह से वो दे आर इन पावर राइट नाउ. So most were rewarded with electoral success well beyond what had been imaginable in the 1980s. But problem is, today the key question that is facing the green parties, they revolve not whether to embrace power, but what to do with it. Now that they're in the government, what to do with it. है ना? So basically they face three challenges. Three challenges इनके सामने. First challenge is how do they carve out a policy niche. अपने आप को अलग कैसे दिखाएं? Because every other party now these days, they have become wiser to green demands. Every other party, even though they were not originally a green party or an environment friendly party, they now have embraced environment concerns. So the question is, how do these parties that were actually environmentalists, how do they differentiate themselves? Okay, this is the first problem. Second problem is, how do they take the green ideas beyond the confines of rich industrialized states into Eastern Europe and developing world, where the green parties remain marginal and the environmental problems are acute. So second challenge is how to expand to other areas, other countries where environmentalists they are actually not part of the political mainstream. That is second issue. And third issue is how to ensure that the broader role of green parties, and what is their role? They are consciousness raisers. They are agitators. They are the conscience of parliament and politics. How to make sure that now that they have become part of the government, all these things are not sacrificed on the altar of electoral success. ऐसा तो नहीं हो जाएगा कि वो अब क्योंकि वो इलेक्शन जीत गए हैं, so now they will now run after votes only, they will forget their main concerns. So these are the three challenges that these parties face now. Then he tells you that green parties have come a long way. They have become established players. They are able to shape competition. They have say in government formation and government policy. But this very establishment carries risk for a party whose core values and identities depend mightily on the ability to challenge the conventional order, to agitate and to annoy. So now that they have become part of the establishment, problem is that the basic agenda was to challenge the establishment, but now they themselves are the establishment. अब वो खुद ही establishment है. ये सबसे बड़ा issue है. This is the biggest issue. Okay, so this is what he's trying to say in this particular passage. Anything you did not understand, please ask. Aap dilemma. Kind of. Yes, Sarvagya. Very nice analogy. Question number 8. Which one of the following is closest in meaning to the first of three challenges that are mentioned in the passage? It has to be number 1. नहीं गौरव, number 1 कैसे? न्यू स्ट्रैटेजी की बात नहीं हो रही, अपने अपना ना नीश कैसे बना के रखें? It is straightforward question है. Aditi, also mark number 2. The very first challenge is saying how to create a niche, because now every party has become green. All of you mark number 2. No, answer is number 1. They don't need to find a new strategy. They have to maintain their niche. How to carve out a policy niche as established, because established parties and governments are becoming wiser to green concerns. So it's not that they want to find a new strategy. It's not that they want to now ignore environmental concerns and they want to take up for example, other concerns. No. But now that everybody is talking about environment, so don't you think the green parties will become redundant? So they'll have to say something in a different way. So question number 8 answer should be 1. Number 9, which of the following is the most important point that the author highlights? I think he talks about the challenges before green parties. Yes, what they need to do. Uh, the challenge before green parties to change their strategy from green activism to green governance. So पहले activism था, but up to they are part of the government at many places. How are they going to manage it? What are going to be the challenges? What new things they will have to do? What strategies they will have to employ? So number 1 should be the answer for question number 9. If you have marked number 2 as the answer, then that is actually not the most important point, because the green parties have already won confidence. They are already part of the government. Ab now what? Uske baad kya? So number 2 is not the most important point. If you mark 2. Question number 10. Now this is an application question. It's asking you, how best can mainstream political parties, for example in India, keep green parties at bay? According to the passage, if mainstream political parties they want to keep green parties at bay, what will they have to do? क्या करना पड़ेगा? Yeah, they'll have to become green, right? हाँ, उनकी green की strategy चुरा दो, तो green parties will become redundant. So yes, best answer is going to be number 3, by including green agenda in their governance. When they do this, then the green parties will have nothing to do. I mean, they will rule. They will lose the relevance. So number 3 is the best answer for question number 10. Okay. We'll move to the next passage from where you have questions 11 to 13. He's talking about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Sapir-Whorf, according to this hypothesis is also known as linguistic relativity hypothesis. What does this hypothesis say? It says that whatever language you speak, it influences the way you think about reality. So if you speak Hindi, so what is going to be real for you is going to be different from a person who speaks English. उसके लिए reality कुछ और होगा. So the way we think about reality, it is actually relative. It depends on the kind of language that we speak. So this hypothesis focuses on structural differences. There are so many languages, unme differences hain, and it also asks whether the classifications of reality that are implicit in such structures affect our thinking about reality. So every language has a way of telling you what is reality. हर लैंग्वेज में रियलिटी का इंटरप्रिटेशन अलग होता है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई ये जो दिस Sapir-Whorf hypothesis है, it takes into account the classification of reality. Okay, it sees that in Hindi reality का कुछ और classification हो सकता है, in English reality can mean something else, in French it can mean something else. So this hypothesis focuses on 2 points. One is structural differences, how the languages are structured and how they classify reality. Then he tells you that if you look at it analytically, then this particular hypothesis, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, this is actually an issue that stands between 2 others. That means there are 2 other things that you need to keep in mind. It's something like A, B, and C. These are 3 things that you need to keep in mind. Whatever Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is trying to say, that is actually B. It stands between 2 others. So there are 2 other things which you need to take into account if you want to actually know whether language influences your thinking or not. Number 1, there are semiotic level concerns with how speaking any natural language whatsoever might influence the general potential for human thinking. So in number B, our number B is actually the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. according to this, the kind of language that you speak influences way of thinking. ठीक है ना? But इसके भी ऊपर एक और that there is one more hypothesis called semiotic level concerns. This, according to this hypothesis, it's not just your particular language. It's any language. कोई भी language है ना? Any language. It has an impact on human thinking. It is not this particular language. Any language has an impact on thinking. Okay? So what does A do? This hypothesis says any language has an impact on thinking. Number B, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says particular language influences the way you think about reality. And there is one more concern, number C, वो क्या है? This is functional or discourse level concern. This concern is how using any given language code in a particular way might influence thinking. So number C hypothesis, जिसको कि functional या discourse level concern कहते हैं, this hypothesis, according to this hypothesis, you use any language, but in that particular language there are certain codes. Okay, there are certain codes. For example, let us say you are using English. In English, there are certain rules of punctuation. There are certain other grammar rules. So the C hypothesis, it actually focuses on specific codes or specific rules of any given language that influences your thinking. So see, ये तीन hypotheses हैं. All three say that your language it influences our thinking about reality. However, इनका जो concern है वो अलग-अलग है. The level of concern is different. Number A, semiotic level concern. It says that any language influences your thinking. Number B, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says a particular language influences your thinking about reality. And number C says that the language codes that you use, whenever you use any particular language, then the language codes that you use, that influences your thinking. ठीक है? तो ये तीनों के तीनों यही कहते हैं कि language influences the way you think about reality. And then he tells you, although they are analytically distinct, they are intimately related in theory and practice. एक ही तरह की बात कर रहे हैं, है ना? And right now I explain to you that even though their focus may be different, but conclusion is the same. For all the three, conclusion is the same. He tells you how they are related. The claims about linguistic relativity depend on understanding the general psychological mechanism linking language to thinking, and on understanding the diverse uses of speech in discourse to accomplish acts of descriptive reference. But if you want to understand Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, you will have to understand that languages have impact on the or languages influence way of thinking. And you'll also have to understand how punctuation rules and grammar rules, because they are part of language, how they impact your thinking about reality. So he has a very convoluted way of saying things, but what he's trying to say is that they are actually saying almost the same thing. They are related. If you want to understand one, you'll have to understand the other as well. Okay. Then he also tells you that languages differ significantly in the interpretations of experienced reality. Both what they select for representation and how they arrange it. Number one, this is first point, that what is reality and how are you going to interpret reality. Every language will have different interpretation. Okay? And second, language interpretations have influences on thought about reality more generally, whether at the individual or cultural level. So there are two things that you need to keep in mind. Number one is that different languages will have different meanings of reality. Reality क्या है? अलग अलग लैंग्वेज में अलग अलग मीनिंग होता है उसका. And whatever whatever meaning, whatever you think about reality, that has an impact on how you think. ठीक है? Language interpretations have influences on thought about reality. So whatever influences of language are there, it will have an impact on your thought about reality. What you think about reality, ये दोनों होगा. So these 2 points you need to keep in mind whenever you're talking about any kind of hypothesis that says that language influences the way you think. So every language has different interpretation of reality, and whatever interpretation of reality you have, that influences your thought. Okay? So that is why if you want to understand linguistic relativity, which is nothing but Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, then it requires you to articulate the contrasting interpretations of reality that is latent in the structures of different languages, and you also access the broader influences. So if you actually want to understand the hypothesis of Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, you'll have to keep in mind these 2 things. What 2 things? That different languages interpret reality differently, and the way languages interpret reality, that it also influences thought. So you'll have to keep these 2 things into mind whenever you are talking about Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. After that, what is going to be the next step? The passage is silent. The passage is silent. He actually stops here. So if there is anything which you did not understand, please ask. To the best of my knowledge, जितना layman term में मैं आपको समझा सकता था, I tried my best. I don't know how much you have understood this passage, but had I been a student, I think I would have stayed away from this particular passage. Okay, as we did. Okay, most of you did. But now little bit, did you understand? So Guma Firake, he's trying to tell you only one thing, that languages have an impact on the way you think about reality. अब कैसे कैसे impact होता है, उसमें क्या क्या factors होते हैं, features होते हैं. He has written it in a very convoluted way. So based on this particular passage, there were 3 questions. Number 1, which of the following conclusions can be derived based on Sapir-Whorf hypothesis? Answer for this question should be 4. Number 4. Those people who have similar intelligence, they may speak the same language. ऐसा क्यों? Because language has an influence on your thinking. Language has an impact on your thinking about reality. So जिन लोगों की thinking same है, in all probability they are speaking the same language. So why I mark number 4, even though number 3 is very good, but would जो है ना, would shows much more certainty. I mean, you are saying that they speak the same language. This is very certain. ये बड़े certain है. However, this entire passage is about a hypothesis. So if it is a hypothesis, so it lacks certainty. It lacks certainty because somebody has to actually prove it, and only then it becomes a theory. So that is why a better word to use is may. Those with similar intelligence may speak the same language, because language impacts your or has an influence on how you think. तो अगर 2 लोग एक ही जैसे सोच वाले हैं, एक ही इंटेलिजेंस लेवल के हैं, इसका मतलब in all probability they are speaking the same language. Answer should be number 4 for question number 11, like rightly marked here by 3 students. Number 12. If Sapir-Whorf hypothesis were to be true, which of the following conclusions would logically follow? Number 1 is talking about vernacular languages. I think vernacular languages के बारे में कुछ भी नहीं है. He is not talking about vernacular languages. He is talking about languages per se. ठीक है ना? So 1 and 2 cannot be right because they become very specific to vernacular languages. But number 3 is right. Cognitive and cultural realities are related. हाँ, क्योंकि different languages interpret reality in different ways, है ना? तो different cultures जो हैं, उनकी जो realities होती हैं वो अलग होती हैं. तो उस अलग अलग कल्चर्स के लोगों का अलग अलग इंटेलिजेंस लेवल होगा या फिर सोचने का तरीका होगा. They are related. Number 3 is right. So I think answer for this question should be option number 3. Ashish, what a man thinks about reality is intelligence. Huh? Yes. No, it is actually a cognitive process, your thought process. Thought process तो intelligence को ही कहते हैं ना. Okay, it influences your thinking. That means it helps in your cognitive interpretation of reality. इसका मतलब तो यही हुआ ना, आपकी understanding में help करता है. Vernacular मतलब native. Yes, restricted to a certain constituency or place. Yes, vernacular. इंटेलिजेंस तो ज्यादा एक्सट्रीम हो गया. क्यों ऐसा क्यों बोल रहे हो आप? Why? What you think and how you think. आपके थॉट प्रोसेस, कॉग्निटिव प्रोसेस को तो आपका इंटेलिजेंस कहते हैं ना. Isn't it? आप कैसे सोचते हो, that is your intelligence. According to passage only, what you think is intelligence. Okay, this is in reference to, wait, आप ज्यादा कंफ्यूज हो गए. कॉग्निटिव का मतलब क्या होता है? अंडरस्टैंडिंग. तो अंडरस्टैंडिंग अच्छी है अगर आपकी, तो अब इंटेलिजेंस है ना, तो कॉमन सेंस है. Okay, so from 12 I'll move to 13. Which of the following proverbs may be false if above passage were to be right? If speech is silver, silence is gold. ये false है. This will be false. क्यों? Why? Tell me. Anybody? Why this will be false? Because there is no differentiation. There is no differentiation between language that is internal and language that is external. ठीक है ना? वो लैंग्वेज जो आप दूसरों से बोलते हो और वो लैंग्वेज जो आप खुद अपने साथ यूज करते हो. Even if you are silent, you are talking to yourself. I'm calling one of them silver and one of them gold. This differentiation is not there. Any language you use will impact your thinking about reality. So it's not that in one situation it's going to be, when you speak out, it is going to be silver. When you don't speak, it's going to be gold. This is not how it works. Harsh. Any kind of speech or language will reflect your thinking, right? Yes. Yes. Number 2, when you have spoken a word, it reigns over you. When it is unspoken, you reign over it. Now this portion is wrong. Even though first portion is somewhat right, but the second part, when it is unspoken, you reign over it. This is not correct, and therefore number 2 also is false. Number 3, speech of yourself ought to be seldom and well chosen. I think this is true. This is true. Why it's true? Because language influences your thinking. So what you say to yourself, थोड़ा कम ही बोलो और जो भी बोलो सोच समझ के बोलो. What you say to yourself, because you become what you think. So this is true. Number 3 is true. 1 and 2. 1 and 2 false hai, and that is why which proverb is false? Answer should be number 1. Answer should be number 1 for question number 13. Okay. So this is a typical passage, difficult one. I think you should have left it. So coming to next passage. Question number 14 to 17 is talking about organizational mortality. That means how long an organization will live. That depends upon the age and size of the organization, as well as characteristics of populations and environments. Now here populations does not mean population of people. He's talking about populations, how many organizations are there in that particular industry, and what kind of environment that industry has or that organization has. So organizational mortality, whether an organization is going to live long or not live long, depends on age and size of the organization, as well as characteristics of populations and environments. Now he tells you how. In fact, he also tells you that there is evidence of an imprinting process. There is an imprinting process. That means those environmental conditions that you had at certain early phases, an organization had in certain early phases, they have very long-term consequences. Okay? For example, those organizations that are subject to intense competition, environment कैसा है? Very competitive. So बहुत ज़्यादा competitive है. Those organizations have elevated mortality hazards at all ages. That means they can die out any time. They have very high mortality hazard. Now he also tells you that a central theme is structural inertia. That is the tendency for organizations to respond slowly relative to the speed of environmental change. Okay? So an organization, what it does, it responds slowly, even though the environment changes very quickly, but the response is slow. Why it's slow? Inertia derives from the very characteristics that make organizations favored actors in modern society in terms of reliability and accountability. Okay, so what he's trying to say is that organizations, when they become reliable and accountable, and then the environment changes, so they are very slow to change because they don't want to lose this reliability and accountability. उसको lose नहीं करते, वो slowly change करते हैं, ठीक है ना? And there's an inertia. He also tells you that if there are changes in an organization's core features, then these changes are disruptive and it increases mortality hazards, at least in the short run. Core features में changes हो जाएंगे तो it becomes disruptive and it increases the chances of the organization dying out. And also, when you have the concept of niche, this also plays a role in determining whether the organization is going to live long or not long. What he's trying to say is that जब niche होता है ना तो कहाँ पे just a minute. Yeah, he tells you that see, there are two theories. There are two theories about niche providers. Okay, one is resource partitioning theory, and other one is theory of density dependent organizational evolution. Partitioning theory, what does it say? That there is a relationship between increasing market concentration and increasing proliferation of specialists in mature industries. So when the industries become mature, there are a lot of people who give you specialized. They give you specialized service. So slowly, specialists organizations become very specialist. Okay, so this is one theory. Second theory is that of density dependent organization evolution. It holds that growth in number of organizations in a population drives processes of social legitimization and competition. That means slowly, what happens that lot of organizations start offering the same niche service. Initially, कुछ ही some industries, some organizations offer niche services, but slowly, more and more organizations they actually start offering the same service, and therefore the competition increases. So he's trying to tell you that niche services maybe kaise, how organizations can become how the mortality hazard increases, how it can die. Okay, so initially कोई problem नहीं है because initially everybody concentrates on the viability of specialist organizations, but slowly density dependent हो जाता है. That means population बढ़ जाती है इस तरह के organizations की who offer specialist services, and therefore it drives up competition, which in turn shapes the vital rates. So rates change, the kind of amount that you charge, those changes, and some organizations probably are not able to keep pace and they die. This is what he's trying to say in this particular passage. Based on this passage, if there is anything you did not understand, please ask. Number 14. Most top-notch business consultants recommended changing the entire configuration of an organization's strategy, structure, and systems. If the ideas contained in the passage are agreed to, then such a recommendation would do what? When there is a change in the core features, then what will happen? Yes, it tends to be disruptive. It tends to increase the vulnerability of the organization. Organization के die out होने के chances बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं. Answer should be number 4. For 14. 15. Consider the following. Tata Steel, one of the biggest steel makers in the world, was born in Jamshedpur. If above passage is true, then it can be concluded that location of Tata Steel has been one of the reasons for its success. Is this conclusion valid or false or far-fetched? I think this conclusion is valid. This is a valid conclusion. My answer will be number 3. Why it is a valid conclusion? Because location is nothing but environment. It's a part of environment. So when I say environment has an impact, long-term impact hota hai environment ka, and today Tata Steel is one of the biggest steel makers in the world. Location was Jamshedpur. So location is part of environment. And now if I'm saying that location has been one of the reasons, it is one of the reasons, not the only reason. So yes, this is a valid conclusion. Number 3 should be the answer for 15. Number 16. Tata Steel, one of the biggest steel makers in the world, was born in Jamshedpur. The very success of Tata Steel could lead to its failure in the future, and hence the challenge for Tata Steel is to recognize its strengths, that make it successful in initial conditions and stick to them. So this is a valid conclusion. The conclusion is contrary to the ideas described in the passage, and the conclusion is internally contradictory. So this is a valid conclusion. No, this is not the answer. Number one is not right. This conclusion is contrary to the ideas described in the passage. So I think हाँ ये तो होना चाहिए. I think ये होना चाहिए. It's contrary to the ideas described in the passage. The very success of Tata Steel could lead to its failure. Could lead to its failure in the future. Internally contradictory तो definitely है. Number three तो definitely है. Internally contradictory तो है ये. This is for sure. Why? Because he's telling you that the very success of Tata Steel could lead to its failure in the future. And now he's asking you that whatever made you successful, you'll stick to them. And whatever made you successful, that will lead to your failure. So will you stick to them? No, so internally contradictory to definitely hai. Number three to definitely answer. We are discussing number 2 for number 16. It should change relative to changing environments. I think over here he's talking about inertia. When you say you need to stick to the initial conditions, you need to stick to them, you are talking about inertia. And inertia this is what you're trying to say. So this conclusion is contrary to the ideas described in the passage. So contradictory तो हुआ नहीं ना फिर Aditi. It is saying that there will be inertia. It will recognize the strength that made it successful and it will stick to them. They will respond slowly. It's mentioned. So what do you want to say? That complete inertia nahi hona chahiye. You have to change, but you have to respond slowly. Okay. Yeah. Now it makes sense. So in the passage you are saying don't do anything, stick to whatever you were doing. But in the passage he is saying that you respond slowly in comparison to the kind of change that you witness. So yes, in a sense it is contradicting the idea presented in the passage. So 2 and 3 can be right. Yeah, ठीक है 5 ठीक है. Complete overhaul नहीं होना चाहिए, but हाँ slight changes. You need to change slightly. Complete overhaul is going to be disruptive. Yes, correct. So 2 and 3 should be the answer for 16. 2 and 3 answer should be option number 5. And there's one more. एक और है यहाँ पे. Number 17. Recently, it was reported that Indian textile sector was not doing well. If the ideas contained in the passage are agreed to, then which of the following could be possible reasons? All Indian firms are as old as international firms. This does not address the question at all. तो ये तो है ही नहीं. Because you're talking about Indian textile sector. Indian firms, how old they are, उससे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Indian textile firms are dispersed all over the country, with most of them also having international presence. So this should not be the reason why the Indian textile sector is not doing well. So no. Textile firms in India were subjected to trade union activity in the period 1960s to 1980s. This can be the reason. So initial condition में या शुरू में अगर प्रॉब्लम है, प्रॉब्लम आई, उसके लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज होते हैं. सो देयर वाज ट्रेड यूनियन एक्टिविटी एंड नाउ देयर आर लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज. लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज आर दैट it is not doing well. This is valid. Number 3 is valid. Should be 3. Answer should be 3 for 17. Okay. Okay, I'll move to 18 and 19. Now he's telling you that if you have influence over someone, okay, then indirectly you have power. If you have influence over somebody who is powerful, then to the extent that that you have influence, you have power. He gives you example of the king's mistress. King's mistress का directly कोई power नहीं है, but she has influence over the king. है ना? She has influence over the king, and to the extent that she has influence over the king, she may have power over his subjects in the degree of that influence. तो जितना ज़्यादा influence है over somebody who is powerful, to that extent you are indirectly powerful. So he's telling you that forms of influence are power only if the scope of the influence is included within that of the power in question. So if you have influence, then you are only powerful to the extent of your influence. जितना influence है उतना ही आप powerful हो. He gives you another example. The king may exercise influence over standards of morality, but he does not necessarily exercise power over morality. So king का influence किसके ऊपर है? Standards of morality के ऊपर है, but he does not have power over morality. So he can influence standards of morality. मतलब he can say he actually can say that अगर आप A करोगे, if you do A, it will be right. It will be considered right. If you do B, it will be considered wrong. So standards क्या होंगे morality के? A करना right, B करना wrong. This he can say. The king can influence this, but he cannot force you to do A or B. He cannot force you not to do C. He cannot force you not to do another thing called D. Okay, he does not have power over morality. Whether you choose to do A or B, he does not have any influence or power over that. That is individual people's choice. But yes, when you do A, whether it is right or wrong, he has influence to actually say it's right or wrong. But he cannot force you to do A, and he cannot force you not to do B. Okay, I think we have done this passage in class as well. Question is, which combination of following statements will best summarize the ideas expressed in this particular paragraph? Strength of an influence determines its power. Yes. जितनी influence उतना ही power होगा. Correct. Influence always contributes power. जरूरी नहीं है. And that too, influence always contributes power to the wielder of influence beyond the scope of influence. Obviously not. जितना influence है उतना ही power होगा. Number 2 is not right. Proximity to authority is itself a source of power. No. Just because you are close to somebody who is powerful does not mean that you will automatically indirectly become powerful. You will have to have influence over that person. Just proximity is not going to give you power. For example, the king will have bodyguards. So bodyguards तो हमेशा king के पास ही रहते हैं, but bodyguards have no influence over the king. So even though there is proximity, but because they cannot influence the king, they do not have any kind of power. So proximity itself is not a source of power. So number 3 is wrong. Number 4, forms of influence are power only if they can influence behavior. Yes. अगर influence नहीं कर सकते behavior, then you are not powerful. So 1 and 4 answer should be 3. Should be 3. 19. Which of the following is similar to ideas expressed in the paragraph? Number 3 should be the answer. A king can indicate the appropriateness of dramas enacted. For example, king can exercise influence over standards of morality. है ना? So king can indicate whether something is appropriate or not appropriate. Standards क्या है? Appropriate या inappropriate है क्या? वो बता सकता है king. But king cannot have influence over other things. कि कैसे ड्रामा आपको what kind of dramas you should act in, को किसको एक्टिंग करनी चाहिए, क्या प्राइस चार्ज करना चाहिए, what drama audience should spend the money on, ये सब चीज नहीं बता सकता king will not have any power over them. But when you do something, whether it was appropriate or not appropriate, king does have an influence over those things. So number 3 is the correct answer for 19. Number 20. As man casts off worn out garments and puts on others which are new, similarly the embodied soul, casting off worn out bodies, enters into others which are new. Of the following, which one best typifies the argument? Similarities, he's talking about similarities, but then this is an argument from analogy. It cannot be an inductive generalization, because we know that inductive generalization is when you move from, अभी तो पता लग गया होगा आपको, when you move from specific info, based on specific info, you are forming a conclusion. You are generalizing. That is inductive generalization. So no, it's not inductive generalization. Predictive argument भी नहीं है. No prediction is being made. It is an argument from authority. You can't say that. You don't know who this person is जो बोल रहा है, whether he's a person of authority or not. We can't say that. This is a causal argument. Does it talk about cause and effect? No. It does not talk about cause and effect. It just tells you a similarity. So it's not a causal argument. And if you read this word as casual, then please beware. Question number 20, answer is 50. 21. All the parliamentarians whom the reporter interviewed told that they had voted as per the conscience. Therefore, probably all the parliamentarians voted as per the conscience. This argument is an example of what? Inductive generalization. Perfect. Yes. ये हमने किया है शायद क्लास में ना? हाँ, we have solved this in class as well. Yes. Inductive generalization. क्यों? Because those parliamentarians whom the reporter interviewed, मतलब ये specific लोग हो गए ना? They are specific. हाँ, they are specific parliamentarians. इनकी basis पर what do I say? All parliamentarians have voted. So now I'm generalizing. So I am generalizing based on specific. It has to be inductive generalization. Before you mark deduction, नहीं deductive तो other way round होता है. Deductive is general to specific. So no, this is not right. Okay. should be 1. Okay, 22 पे आते हैं. Till now, anybody has any doubt? Let's come to 22. Nature lovers are attracted to forests and nature parks. Just look at the number of people visiting Corbett National Park. Which of the following exhibits a pattern of reasoning least dissimilar? That means most similar to the one exhibited in the argument above. Answer for this question should be 3. Fleas must thrive in a warm environment. During warm weather, my dog suffers from fleas more so than during cooler weather. अब जिन्होंने 3 मार्क किया ठीक है, बट जिन्होंने 3 मार्क नहीं किया या फिर जिनको समझ में नहीं आया, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दैट फर्स्ट ही फॉर्म्स द कंक्लूजन. पहले वो कंक्लूजन बताता है एंड देन ही टेल्स यू, ही गिव्स यू एविडेंस. ये है ना पैटर्न. So first step, he tells you what is the conclusion. His conclusion is nature lovers are attracted to forests and nature parks. उसके बाद वो specific evidence देता है. Look at number of people visiting Corbett National Park. Same thing happens in number 3. Fleas must thrive in a warm environment. Conclusion है. To validate your conclusion, you are giving specific evidence. Look at my dog. He suffers from fleas more so during cooler weather. And that is why number 5 is wrong. Many people think number 5 is right, but number 5 may other way around hai. In number 5, he gives you evidence first. And then, yahan pe conclusion aata hai. He has changed the order. Nahi to number 5 also could have been right. Okay, 22, answer is 3. 23. In this era of global capital flows, so much money is now flowing throughout the world that no single country can fight the problem of inflation effectively by tightening its monetary policy. If the above is true, which of the following could be most logically concluded? Number 3. 3 yoga. Countries will have insufficient control. He's telling you that no single country can fight the problem effectively. That means finance ministers will not have enough control over their respective economies. Yes, number 3 hona chahiye for 23. I think we have done all this in critical reasoning classes. इसमें से बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन किए हमने. 24. Many entrepreneurs try to control the composition of the board of directors, but more experienced entrepreneurs tend to share control. Inviting participation from institutional investors and outside directors. Which option best summarizes the idea that might be guiding experienced entrepreneurs' behavior? So why do the experienced entrepreneurs they share control? Why do they share control? Why do they invite participation from institutional investors and outside directors? Kyunki number 1, yes, because these entrepreneurs they expect experienced directors to monitor the performance of the enterprise and to be a sounding board. So this looks like the most valid reason that you want them to monitor the performance, and you also want these directors to give direction to the company. So number 4 should be right. Sorry, number 1 should be right. Sarvagya, you mark number 4. Experienced entrepreneurs expect the experienced directors to engage in day-to-day management. Directors are not engaged in day-to-day management, for your kind information. ये तो लॉजिकली भी रॉन्ग है. डायरेक्टर्स तो सिर्फ डायरेक्शन देते हैं ना कंपनी को. सो डे टू डे मैनेजमेंट में एंगेज करना तो कभी हो ही नहीं सकता. एक्सपीरियंस्ड एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इसलिए डायरेक्टर्स रख रहे हैं. दिस इज एब्सोल्युटली इलॉजिकल. Maybe, but board do. Board does not engage in day-to-day management. सर्वज्ञ. बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स कभी भी डे टू डे मैनेजमेंट में नहीं इन्वॉल्व होते हैं. They just say that this year we need sale of 100 crores. For 100 crores we are giving you budget of 10 crores. Sales का budget है. This is sales budget. अब कैसे स्पेंड करना है ये अब सेल्स डिपार्टमेंट चूज कर ले कि 10 करोड़ में कितना ऐड करना है, कितना डिस्काउंट देना है, क्या करना है. और हमें 100 करोड़ चाहिए क्योंकि हमें 10 years में from this 100 crores we have to go to 900 crores. बस ऐसे करते हैं बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स. हाँ, लोअर मैनेजमेंट विल एंगेज इन डे टू डे मैनेजमेंट. यस. सो यू डोंट नीड टू शेयर कंट्रोल. डे टू डे मैनेजमेंट के लिए तो किसी के साथ कंट्रोल शेयर करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. यू हायर सम मैनेजर्स. Why do you want to give them? Why are you inviting participation? Why you want to share control? You pay them salaries. Okay. So no, number 4 cannot be a valid reason. So they make policy decisions. They don't engage in day-to-day management. Best answer will remain number 1 for question number 24. 25. There is nothing so stupid as an educated man if you can get him off the thing he was educated in. So which of the following will undermine the author's contention? So if you remove education, then then a person will become stupid. So in order to undermine him, you can say that education is not just bookish knowledge or concentration on one particular subject. Education implies well-rounded exposure to major subjects. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने कोई एक चीज हटा दिया, दो चीज हटा दिया, that person will become stupid. No, it is well-rounded exposure. So yes, number 1 should be the answer. Gaurang, number 2 आपने बोला an educated man will not discuss things which he does not understand. How is it going to undermine this statement? ये तो आपने एक फैक्ट बोला मेरे को. इससे ये कैसे साबित हो जाता है that अगर आप एजुकेशन हटा दो, an educated man will not become stupid. ये तो प्रूव हुआ ही नहीं नंबर 2 से. Should be number 1. 26. Ram, an economist, and Ramesh, an astrologer, had a debate. Ram said astrology does not work, it just cannot predict. It can predict better than your subject, rebutted Ramesh. The evidence that will best resolve the above debate will be, so economist prediction अच्छा करता है या astrologer? कैसे solve करोगे? Number 5. Yes. Conduct an experiment where both astrologers and economists would be asked to predict the future. Compare the percentage of predictions that come true. What is important is percentage of predictions that come true. Number of predictions से कुछ नहीं होगा. So people who wanted to mark number 4, but over here they are not writing your answers. Please understand that number 4 will not work because number of predictions does not prove anything. Okay, because if you say look at A and B, this guy made 100 predictions, this guy made 10 predictions. Out of 100, 16 predictions are true, 84 become false. And out of 10, 8 predictions are true and 2 become false. So आप तो number of prediction देके बोलोगे तो A is better, but in reality B is better. So percentage of predictions important ज़्यादा है. Yes. Gaurang, you want to mark 2? Okay. You compare the past performance of astrologers and economists in terms of number of predictions. फिर number of predictions. गलत होता है ना. अभी राइट नाउ आई एक्सप्लेन टू यू. नंबर ऑफ प्रिडिक्शन तो कभी आप पता लगा नहीं सकते हैं. इट विल हैव टू बी परसेंटेज ऑफ प्रिडिक्शन. ओके. Okay, this is 26. Answer is 5. Number 27. Which of the following sentences draws a metaphor? किसमें metaphor है? Metaphor is when you make a comparison without using the word as and like. So has to be number 2. Karl Marx labeled the capitalist a parasite. So you are calling capitalist a parasite. Equate कर रहे हो दोनों को, capitalist और parasite को एक बता रहे हैं. This is metaphor. So there's a comparison without using the words like and as. So 27 should be 2. 28. Which sentence includes an example of personification? This was number 3. Answer is number 3 because you're saying money still plays an important role. I am giving personal, I am personifying money by saying it still plays. Money still plays. So money still plays, this is personification. I am giving human features. Why not 5? Democracy does not help the common citizen because inanimate things also can help. Priyanka, when technology आपको help करती है ना, technology तो inanimate है. So when you actually give human features to something that is not human, है ना, तो ये help करना सिर्फ एक human feature नहीं है. नहीं, एक जैसा नहीं है. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, दिस इज नॉट अ ह्यूमन फीचर. हेल्प करना सिर्फ ह्यूमन फीचर नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी भी हेल्प करती है ना. बट टू प्ले करना एक ह्यूमन फीचर है. हेल्प करना तो सन का भी फीचर है, हेल्प करना तो प्लांट का भी फीचर है. सो ह्यूमन फीचर नहीं है ना हेल्प सिर्फ. अदर थिंग्स ऑल्सो कैन हेल्प जो ह्यूमन नहीं है. बट प्ले इज एक्चुअली to play a role that is a human feature. So that is why number 3 is the best answer for 28. Number 1 में क्या प्रस्तुत personification कैसे है? Number 1, how am I giving human features to something? So Banjaras of Rajasthan तो पहले ही humans है ना. They already humans. So when I make something inanimate, when I give it human qualities, money is not living. उसको मैंने human quality दे दिया that it plays an important role. Banjaras तो पहले ही human है, तो इसमें personification कहाँ है? Okay. Personification will only happen when you give human features to something that is inanimate. Remember that. 29. Which sentence suffers most from hyperbole? Hyperbole means exaggeration. Answer for this question should be 1. Yes, most collectors of coins would give the earth. They would give the earth means they would go to any extent to own one of the copper coins issued by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Yes, number 1 is right. Number 1 suffers from hyperbole. Question number 30. I think we have discussed किया था part of speech class में, figure of speech. How to eliminate 3? Okay, how to eliminate 3? Cricket has a great following in India, but the 2020 format took the game to nook and corner of the world. Every nook and corner of the world नहीं है ना. Nook and corner of the world means काफी जगह. every nook and corner of the world, that would be kind of hyperbole. Tanmay, Tanmay, Tanmay. Okay, 30. Which sentence includes a euphemism? Euphemism is a mild expression in place of an offensive statement. A mild expression in place of an offensive statement. So a cemetery is a place where people are buried when they pass away. So pass away is a less derogatory term. It is a mild expression for dead. Yes, right. Euphemism. 30. 31. Which of the following contains a non sequitur? Non sequitur means a conclusion that does not follow. SEQ का मतलब sequence होता है, follow. ठीक है ना? So which one does not follow? किसमें conclusion है जो follow नहीं होता? Answer is 2. Public trust in politicians is at an all-time low. ठीक है? This is the reason, and we can't insist that the politicians go back to school. So इस reason से क्या ये conclusion आता है? Can you get this conclusion? Public trust in politicians is at an all-time low, and we can't insist that the politicians go back to school. No, there is no relation between this reason and conclusion. It's a non sequitur. It does not follow. All the others, they will follow. Okay, 31. Okay, 32. I'll move to 32. Recommence. Recommence is to suspend. They are antonyms. Recommence, restart, and suspend means stop. They are antonyms. As nonchalant is to, nonchalant means carefree. Carefree. Unconcerned. उसका antonym क्या होगा? बहुत ज़्यादा problematic, troubled, beleaguered. Should be beleaguered. Worried. बेफिक्रे. बेफिक्रे. Kind of, yes. Nonchalant. Nonchalant means yes. Insouciant. Good word. आपकी vocabulary अच्छी है अदिति. Insouciant. Insouciant. Nice word. बहुत दिनों बाद सुना ये word. But yes, insouciant is a perfect word. Nonchalant. Beleaguered मतलब troubled from all sides. ये बेफिक्रे में था? अच्छा. नहीं, I have not watched that movie, so I don't know. But movie में words sometimes they use it very differently. Okay, sometimes they use it very differently, and sometimes they do not pronounce it too well as well. I mean, they actually do not pronounce it the way it is pronounced, supposed to be pronounced. Heather is a perfect example. Tirade. Tirade is a speech of criticism or ridicule. More often it's a speech of criticism. Rant, yes. Tirade, you to pata hi hai. Other words you already know. Harangue, diatribe, yes. Harangue and diatribe synonyms hai. They are the synonyms of tirade. And the word harangue is not pronounced as harangue you. It is pronounced as harangue. Moving to 33. Which sentence includes an oxymoron? Oxymoron is two words that are side by side and they are contradictory. So number 4, he loved his aunt but found her kindness suffocating. So kindness भी है और suffocating भी है. Oxymoron. Two terms that are contradictory placed side by side. Oxymoron. I'm happily sad. Oxymoron. Okay. Number 34 and 35. Arrange the sentences in a logical order. 34 answer is 2. 3, 2, 4, 1. 3, it have to start with 3 because 3 is telling you that what exactly is the individual will. Individual will क्या होता है? Individual will is something which exists independently. ठीक है? Then he says this constitutes a negation. ये एक negation है. That what is this individual will? When you say I have an individual will, you are kind of negating something. Because the moment you have individual will, it is understood not to be there is understood not to be the existence of universal will. तो अगर individual will है, अगर you want to exist independently, automatically there is a negation क्योंकि आप universal will को accept नहीं कर रहे. Rather, what you do, the universal will is thought to exist outside any individual will. So you actually what you do is that you start differentiating between two kinds of wills. One is your individual will and one is universal will. You look at universal will as something that is outside, external. Universal will is something which is applicable in contracts. In contracts that bind a number of property owning wills together, and in the punishments that enforce breaches of those contracts. So according to you, in the universal will applies to the outside world. जैसे contracts होते हैं लोगों के बीच में, उसमें universal will लगता है. ठीक है? Now from 4 you'll have to move to number 1. Because it says this negotiation has to be negated. What negotiation? कौन से negotiation की बात हो रही है? Whatever he talked in number 2 and number 4. The fact that when you say you have an individual will, you are negating universal will. You consider universal will to be something external, applicable to contracts that you make with others, external world. के साथ जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करते हो उसमें यूनिवर्सल विल लगता है. बट व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट मॉरल विल, जब मॉरल विल में आते हो ना आप, देन यू विल हैव टू negate everything that was just now said. So all this talk about individual will and being something different and universal will being something different, इसको negate करना पड़ेगा if you want to understand what is moral will. ठीक है? Because the individual moral will understands that it is the existence of the universal will which is therefore internal to it. So moral will जब होता है, when you have a moral will, then उसमें individual will भी है, it will have individual will also and it will have universal will also. दोनों उसमें include हो जाते हैं. So this difference, ये जो अभी तक आपने डिफरेंस क्रिएट किया था इंडिविजुअल एंड यूनिवर्सल विल में, दैट डिफरेंस इज निगेटेड. दैट नेगोशिएशन विल हैज टू बी निगेटेड. दैट इज व्हाई आंसर शुड बी नंबर 2 फॉर 34. Okay, so very complicated way of writing it, but 34 answer is 2 and 35. I think this one was easy. The very first one. 35 answer is 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because it says, in the concept, the introduction है, ये जो तीन चीजें हैं, universality, particularity and individuality, they are immediately identical to each other. As immediately identical, these concepts cannot be separated. This means that they must be thought of as a single unit, a unity. And then he says the interrelation of universality, particularity and individuality is otherwise in judgment. This concludes what he's trying to say. So 35 answer should be number 1. Please take a look. Please take a look at all the questions. If there is anything that troubled you, anything that you did not understand. Okay, question number 22. I'll come to 4, option number 4 as well, but I'll not keep others waiting. People who want to leave, good night from my side. I'll see you now on Friday with 2008 paper. Okay, I'll take care. And people who have queries, I'm here for another 5 minutes. Muskan, कट ऑफ क्या रहेगा इसका? इसका कट ऑफ लगभग आई थिंक इसका कट ऑफ होगा 13, 12, 13. 12, 13 होगा. Okay, 16.75. Okay, ठीक है. But before, many questions we have already solved. I think many questions we had solved earlier in the class. So in this paper, it becomes difficult to judge judge your performance, है ना? अगर पहले solve नहीं किया होता तो struggle ज़्यादा होता ना? Almost I think half of the paper we have already solved. Out of 35 questions, 15, 20 questions तो हम पहले कर चुके हैं. Critical reasoning, I think passage वाला वो power वाला passage, and in previous sessions as well, we have solved a lot of questions. Okay, no issues. But whatever you score, good. Idea is not to the idea right now is not to enhance. I mean, scores पे ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं देना है. It's more important to focus on your understanding. To bring to your notice different kind of content so that you can, if possible, widen your understanding. That is the reason why we have these sessions. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि ये repeat होने वाला है. ऐसा तो है नहीं. But आपने इतने सारे पेपर किए 2016 से लेकर अभी तक 2009 तक, कुछ ना कुछ तो आइडिया हो ही गया होगा कि XAT के बारे में. Okay. Question number 22, number 4 cannot be the answer because यहाँ पे however है ना. किसका क्वेश्चन चाहिए? एक मिनट. Good night, guys who are leaving. Good night. Muskan, this was your question. You cannot have this however here because in the original sentence you have a conclusion and this evidence is proving the conclusion. However will negate it. It will not prove the conclusion. So number 4 is not similar to the pattern of reasoning exhibited in the argument. Therefore, it cannot be the answer. Okay. Okay then. Take care. Sarvagya, can we say that VA is generally easier than RC? No, you cannot generalize. Generalize तो नहीं कर सकते. Sometimes VA becomes pretty difficult. RC कभी-कभी काफी doable आते हैं. Let us not generalize. Whatever you can understand in the very first reading, पहले वो करो आप, है ना? That is my suggestion. That's what I said. Whatever you can understand in the very first reading, पहले वो करो. If you have time, then you move to other questions. Okay? Okay. Take care. Good night. Good night, all of you. Take care.
Music